And that's why you'll go to The Guardian, and The Guardian will say, this technology that's got a few small people rich, which is used by terrorists and drug dealers, is also using more energy than Norway or New Zealand. So when you start stacking the FUD on top of the FUD on top of the FUD, you get people rather than saying,
well, here are the facts.
Yeah, here's the best accounting system in the world, which removes money misinformation, which stops corruption, which hopefully prevents banking collapses, which reduces inflation because government can't print money, which also enables people under authoritarian regimes to have property rights, which, so we can stack our own stack, but we don't have to lie with our stack.
No, listen, the truth. Yeah. No, by the way, you bring up a perfect point. The truth is actually our friend here. All that matters is what's the truth. What is the actual truth? Because all of those stats are in our favor. It's the misinformation. We're getting hit with misinformation in every angle, and we have been since the inception of this network. And I think one of the problems that we faced as people that are involved in the Bitcoin network is that we found value in a decentralized, and distributed network. And so what do? Well, we all do our own thing to stop this decentralized or this centralized use of misinformation. Because what are we railing against? Well, centralized monetary technologies that have corrupted, centralized accounting technologies that have corrupted. And so we're all trying to stay decentralized. You can't do that in a marketing war. We're in a marketing war and we're losing, right? And so what you had was different people in the industry, including me. I would talk to a few people and never talk to anybody else because I didn't want to be in the middle of all of this. Personally, in front of all the maniacs coming after me every day. And so like you, which I don't know how you do it, but so I think we saw the kickback the most that I've seen when Michael Saylor and I agreed to set up this Bitcoin mining council with a few other folks in the beginning. I've been protecting this network for a decade, very vested in its well-being. They came after us, right? You're bad guys. You think you're a council of miners and you're going to tell everybody what to think, and if they would have listened to us, the only purpose of what that is, and you can see we haven't done anything except for put out educational materials and tell you how much energy is used by the Bitcoin network. The purpose of that was this. They're united against us. They're really, really good at putting out bad information that's false, right? Or misleading. And how do we combat that? Well, if one company puts out information and another company puts out information and another company, and they're all a little bit different, no one listens. But if everybody puts it out together, they listen. So we needed to coordinate the effort in terms of the messaging coming out. I think Michael Saylor, I'll give him credit for this quote. He said it the best in one of our first early talks. He said, we could be decentralized, which is what we all are, but we don't need to be disorganized, and which is what we were. And so we've, in an organized manner, collected information on energy statistics so we can counter this FUD that goes on a legislative level. And it helps everybody, because if America bans this technology, that's not good. It's not good for Americans. Bitcoin doesn't care, right? You can't disrupt the code. The Bitcoin network will move.
But it makes it easier for Europe to ban it, Australia to ban it. It makes it just, takes the wind out.
If we could stop it, why not stop it? And by the way, if we could stop it by just providing the truth, well, why not do that? And so that's what we do. We just put out the actual numbers. We don't need to spin it. We don't need to market it. Here are the numbers. The numbers show that what you're being told is a lie. It's intellectually dishonest, what you've been told. Anybody who compares this network to a small country is framing this on a global problem. We just talked about what the numbers are. This is not a global problem, not even close. And by the way, the carbon footprint is the same percentage, because we're using energy, less the percent of energy, sustainable energy used by this industry over other industries. And so the use of our energy for this network, it releases less carbon than this energy would have been used in other industries, because we use a majority of additional sustainable energy sources. So you end up with this And here's the waste. I'll give you a good example. You brought up waste. I wanted to address that, and I'll let you ask whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off again. The wasted energy, and this is the example I like to use. Electricity, okay? Electricity and energy, people confuse them. They're different. Energy is used to create electricity. Okay, so electricity is after it's created, and then they push the heat through the lines, and then you use it. Okay, if it goes too far, it degrades into nothing. You can only send, and I say 500 miles, and then people are like, you can't say 500 miles. You can send energy a certain amount of miles before you lose too much of it in transmission lines and heat loss. The United States, we take 10,600 terawatt hours of energy every year to create all of the electricity on our electrical grid. Everything that we're plugged into in the United States is the result of 10,800 terawatt hours of energy creating that electricity. Okay. Of that 10,800 terawatt hours of energy, 6,800 terawatt hours of that, over 60%, is wasted. Poof, gone. What that means is the Bitcoin network, which uses 200 terawatt hours a year, right, is a fraction of a percent of the wasted energy in America. In America, right? So it's 1 or 2% of the wasted energy. It's a little more than a fraction of a percent, but it's 1 or 2% of the wasted energy in America. So you're seeing these campaigns that pop up to confuse the population that this energy use is destroying the planet. Now, there's a lot. I mean, we all agree, I'm assuming, there's a lot of real environmental, horrific crimes committed every day all around the globe. Massively terrible things. They release poisons into the groundwater. They're using pesticides that run off into the streams and the lakes. They're doing terrible things to our ocean. There's terrible, terrible things on the environmental front going on every day all over the world. And disproportionately, you know who's harmed by that? Poor people. The poor people, they live in centralized conditional areas where there's lots and lots of environmental damage. The environmental damage that occurs on a yearly basis, right? It's horrific. It's not caused by Bitcoin. It's not caused by the small, inconsequential amount of energy that's used by Bitcoin. Yet, what's on the front cover of every article right now in every mainstream media outlet? Bitcoin energy use. He's talking about all of this horrific stuff that's going on across the world. And so we're really living in this dystopian environment where there's massive environmental crime being committed, and they're focused on 0.00018 of the world's energy, which people like me and we're building in sustainable environments, the majority of the large companies. And so it's a nonsensical article. It's a nonsensical argument. The articles were nonsensical too, and it's really unfortunate to watch it play out over and over again. And I've had hour-long talks with lots of people, and they're like, "Well, the New York Times said this uses more energy than this country." And I'm like,
"Back in New York Times,
like nonstop." So that's part of the energy talk, and obviously I could talk a lot about it.
Well, I just wanted to put something in there because your answer there and the work the Bitcoin mining councils have done is essentially kind of defensive work. This is what you're being told. Here's the truth. But I'm also really interested in the offensive work. We had Margot Pyers on the show recently from the Bitcoin Policy Institute, and we're helping her get funded to run a project. Now, she is an environmentalist, and she wants to do a project. She wants to write a paper studying what's happening here with ERCOT. How I think, was it 2 years ago? I mean, you've spent probably more time here than me, but it's 2 years ago that the grid collapsed because of something to do with the weather and the infrastructure, but also there's like a need for a balanced load. Mm-hmm. Not only on a policy level, education level, can you go and defend the FUD with regards to how much energy is used. You can actually come back and say, not only is the energy use negligible, but if we place mining infrastructure here, we actually stabilize the grid. So you have both offensive and defensive arguments.
Very good point. 100% right. The Bitcoin Mining Council is more of a defensive educational platform, And then on the offensive, people, what was the name?
Margot Paez. So
Margot Paez. I'd love to see what she's putting together because that sounds super interesting.
Yeah.
But what you bring up is exactly right. And here's the difference between the energy used by Bitcoin miners versus the energy used by, let's say, AWS, a big data center company. If there were, like you said, an emergency weather event, okay, and part of the grid energy generation facilities collapse or get turned off, or too many people turn on their power during non-peak hours where they didn't have enough electricity to send around. If there's an emergency event or a controlled load event where there's a load problem, companies like Core Scientific have contractually agreed to shut off in seconds all of the miners. Now, why can we do that? And why can't other industries do that, right? Well, if we turn off our Bitcoin mining servers, nothing happens. They just stop doing calculations. Nothing happens at all. If AWS turns off their data centers,
Ethereum stops running.
Huh?
Ethereum stops running.
Yes. But no one's going to die.
Daddy's getting cocky now. He's got a mic.
Yeah.
Ethernet.
Yeah. No. You'll see consequences that affect stake networks that are on servers over there. But you'll also see much more dire consequences in that they're running the traffic lights in Austin, right? And every other city in the plan, every other city in America, they're running the air traffic control towers, right? That their servers are off-site at AWS. So what happens if you turn off AWS? People are going to die, right? It's going to be terrible. The ramifications are going to be massive. And so you cannot turn off traditional legacy industry systems. You just can't. And they have fail safes for that. They have power redundancies built in. They have generators. They have all types of stuff that make sure that they never go offline. Bitcoin miners, we don't care if we go offline. So what we're called is flexible load. If there's an emergency, you can shut us off first. We'll give the power back that we were going to take. We just won't take it anymore. And so we're the first line of defense in an emergency situation. And what does that mean for an electrical grid on a regional or local level? That means if you have a Bitcoin mining facility on your grid is stronger than any other grid that does not, because the first power to turn off is ours. And Core Scientific, we issue a press release the last few months on the total number of times we turn off. When we shut off power, we tell how many times we down power a month and how many megawatts of power we send back to the grid. And it happens often. I think over 10 times last month, a number of times in January. And so we're curtail power. We'll turn it off right away and send it back to the grid.
So is that something that's like you sign the contract with the energy provider?
Yeah, so there's different types. We are right now contractually obligated. Most big energy utility companies, they'll require it. And so for the large miners, and I'm assuming all other large miners have contractual obligations to curtail power during emergency events or controlled load events. There's also economic events, like sometimes power prices shoot up. We have the rights to shut off then. So there's really three reasons to curtail power. Economic, there's some kind of economic event, which is not an emergency. Emergency, a storm, something terrible happened in the community, or a controlled load event where the loads get disrupted. So those are the three different types.
And is there a power down process? Like how long does it take you to?
Seconds.
It's seconds. You can literally just turn them off. No damage to equipment.
Nothing. Turn them back on 15 minutes later, 6 hours later. Doesn't
Amazing.
Matter. Doesn't matter. And so that ability to down power an industry like that doesn't exist except for this. And so we provide that flexible load. Now, why is flexible load so important? Well, what are renewables? Renewables are intermittent. They're not always on, right? The wind doesn't always blow. The sun doesn't always shine. The waves get lower. So you have this intermittent renewable energy source, which people want, and the world wants to move more towards renewable energies. Well, in order to get more renewable energies on your grid, which are intermittent, so they come and go, you need flexible load so you can downpower them as the intermittency hits in certain times on renewable energy. So this industry is not only making the grid stronger, we're really subsidizing the growth of renewable energy globally, right? We're the only private industry today that's subsidizing the growth of renewable energies on a global basis.